Good morning, everyone. My name is John Borshoff, Managing Director and CEO of Deep Yellow, as you just heard. I'd like to welcome you to the webcast regarding the proposed merger of Deep Yellow and Vimy Resources to create a new globally significant uranium player. And this is really a momentous day with the coming together of these two companies, and as the market seems to indicate from early opening, the investors think likewise, because both our companies are reacting positively. This proposed merger marks the first major deal in the uranium sector for nearly a decade, which I'll talk a bit about later. I'm joined on the call today by Stephen Michael, Managing Director and CEO of Vimy Resources, and I would like him to ask him to come in with some introductory comments before I get on to the presentation.
Thank you, John, and I echo your comments that this really is a momentous day for both companies, and it's the beginning of a very special journey for all of our shareholders. From the Vimy perspective, this merger de-risks and underpins the path to development of the Mulga Rock project. The combined financial and technical strengths of both companies will enable greater optimisation and delivery of Mulga Rock and will enhance our exploration efforts to unlock full value at the Alligator River project. Under the proposed merger, Vimy shareholders will receive 0.294 Deep Yellow shares for every Vimy share held on the scheme record date, and upon implementation of the scheme, Vimy shareholders will hold approximately 47% and Deep Yellow shareholders will hold 53% of the merged group. The merger transaction implies 28.5 cents per Vimy share based on the last closing price of Deep Yellow on Friday last week, representing a premium of 35% to Vimy's 30-day VWAP and a 19% premium to the closing Vimy share price on Friday, being the last trading day prior to going into a trading halt and this announcement. The Vimy board is united in our view that the benefits of being part of a larger, stronger and geographically diverse merged group with enhanced expertise to develop a quality portfolio of assets in the near term are significant to our shareholders. Importantly, the largest shareholder of both companies, Paradise Investment Management, intends to vote in favour of the merger in the absence of a superior proposal. We are very excited about what the future holds and look forward to engaging with our shareholders over the coming weeks to further discuss this scheme, and we believe it will unlock value for all shareholders. I'll now hand back to John to run through some details.
Thanks, Stephen. You would have all seen our joint announcement this morning and our comprehensive presentation. I don't propose to go through the entire deck in detail, but we'll just use in the next few minutes just to touch on some of the key highlights before we open up to questions and answers. Firstly, though, I'd like to go with the disclaimer slide before you, and I'd like to bring to your attention the material in this disclaimer, and please read carefully if you're thinking of making any investment decisions, as we'll be making some forward-looking statements which you will need to verify and research yourself before you act. So we can go now, starting at slide 5. I use the numbers that are in the deck, in the main deck here. So this is, as I said, this is really a sector-defining transaction. We are convinced the industry is due for a significant value uplift, and the time for consolidation is now in readiness for the positive outlook we see for uranium. We believe, in addition to the value of the specific assets grouped in the merger and the accretive value this will give to the shareholders, the increase in scale will open the door to encourage greater investment appetite from institutions. The move to decarbonise governments worldwide, increasingly recognising nuclear power as a low-carbon source of sustainable energy generation, and that this is becoming an imperative, and the Russia-Ukraine situation, which will have long-term consequences to our industry, are hugely significant factors changing the landscape of nuclear. All of this, by the way, is happening on what was an already positive outlook due to uranium supply shortage that are predicted, and as shown in the now outdated demand-supply market study that WNA released in September 2021. Putting all this together then, we believe it all strongly supports the case for a merger at this point of the cycle, providing opportunity for significant value accretion. On the next slide now, if you look at the chart on slide 6, you will clearly see the increased global scale and significance of that merged group. The merger creates a uranium company with 389 million pounds attributable resource base, one of the largest in the world. We will benefit from the financial strength and stability of the combined platform, and we will have increased funding flexibility to develop our project as a priority, and if accretive opportunities arise, look to increase our project pipeline further. So in the next 3 slides, we set out the rationale for this transaction that will take place. So on slide 7, we showed 2 very important aspects of the merger. The first is the combined quality of the assets, where we will have 2 advanced assets with an annual production potential of 3 million pounds from Deep Yellow and 3.5 million from the Vimy asset, potentially to become one of the largest producers on the ASX of the emerging group developers. We will be geographically diverse, differentiating ourselves from other single asset uranium juniors, and we are operating in the 2 best jurisdictions in the world, Australia and Namibia. The second point to note is we see potential for significant re-rating of the merged group by combining the 2 companies and all the benefits that come with that in regard to market profile, increased scale, and enhanced financial strength and gaining financial funding flexibility. With this merger, we see the creation of operating in Tier 1 jurisdictions and becoming a leading independent uranium platform and to become a supplier of choice. On slide 8, there are 2 panels that highlight other significant features of this merger. First, it's the standout team that we will assemble following this merger. There is a severe shortage of uranium talent and experience across the sector for very many reasons which you may have heard me talk about. And we find ourselves in a very strong position as the merged group will be led by a team that is highly credentialed and has proven track record of advancing, developing and operating uranium mines. The second, on the right-hand panel, you will see the very impressive pipeline of projects we now have under one roof in the merged group, starting from exploration to the more advanced projects of Alligator River and Omahola projects, and leading to the flagship Mulga Rock and Tumas projects, which we are aiming to develop when the projects become ready and the price is right. Importantly, we are now much better positioned to attend to the needs of these 2 advanced projects we now have, Tumas and Mulga Rock, and leading them towards development. For this, we undoubtedly have the right technical team and proven capability to drive this endeavour. We also have a highly prospective portfolio of exploration opportunities and one of the best, I believe, experienced uranium exploration teams to extract all the upside potential we believe exists in these projects. In the next slide, we show 2 dimensions of our growth strategy. We continue with our dual pillar strategy, which, as mentioned, is centred on the development of our two advanced assets, Tumas and Mulga Rock, and to look for opportunities for continued expansion. By creating a company of scale, we will have the platform to be able to pursue larger, high-quality uranium assets with more financial flexibility, and this will only be where targets are identified which will have highly accretive value to the shareholders. This growth through the dual strategy is, I believe, important to our aim of establishing a multi-project global uranium company aiming to sustain at least 5 or 10 million pounds per annum over the long term. The merger with Vimy is the first step in this exciting transformation process to become a Tier 1 uranium company. If the window of opportunity persists, we do have the right team and the vision to be able to capitalise using our increased scale and standing in the global uranium community. And finally, as is shown in the panel on the right of this slide, we will continue to build on our strong commitment to sustainability and ESG. In fact, this merger provides a strong platform to grow and evolve the ESG objectives fast-tracked and quicker as the merged group progresses towards becoming a major global uranium producer. I'll leave it on the slide 22 and then hand it back to Stephen for some comments.
Thanks, John. Vimy owns two outstanding uranium opportunities, Mulga Rock and Alligator River, and the Vimy board firmly believes that this merger with Deep Yellow will allow us to unlock the full potential of our assets. Over the last year in particular, we have made significant advances in the development of Mulga Rock, and the team has done a great job to get the project to this point. As we now move to the next phase of development with a clearer pathway to production, this merger is a key step because it will provide the corporate strength and expertise to fast-track value creation. In addition, combining Vimy's and Deep Yellow's asset portfolios will create a genuine ASX market leader with an unrivaled mix of early-stage, advanced and near-term development opportunities across the Tier 1 operating jurisdictions of Australia and Namibia. In terms of process, as this merger is being implemented by way of a scheme of arrangement, Vimy shareholders will receive a scheme booklet in the coming weeks, including an independent expert's report and a notice of meeting. I urge you to read that information, contact us if you have any queries, and vote in favour of the transaction. I've been delighted with the positive feedback from shareholders this morning since we announced this merger with Deep Yellow, as you can see with the share prices of both companies performing well in early trading. And look forward to spending the coming weeks further articulating why the Vimy board believes this is a great opportunity for all shareholders. I'll now hand back to John for some closing remarks.
Thanks, Stephen. You'll see on the slide before you this compelling opportunity to build the leading global uranium platform. And while we are going to go on with this program, please get yourself familiar with those, because it's a very rare combination of attributes that this merger presents. So in conclusion, I would like to repeat what I said earlier. This is a compelling opportunity to build the leading global uranium platform and clearly stand out from amongst the juniors. We are creating a new emerging uranium entity with the opportunity to grow to significant global scale, led by a proven management team able to acquire, develop, finance, operate and deliver on a pipeline of projects with the aim of shareholder wealth creation. This and the improving outlook for uranium is something that a merger like this that we now contemplate sets the shareholders for a very exciting and rewarding time, if this scheme of arrangement is accepted, of course, by the shareholders of Vimy in the coming months. If there was ever a case for a win-win situation, I am convinced the Deep Yellow Vimy merger represents such a case. So thanks everyone for your attention, and now I'd like to hand it back to the moderator for some questions that Stephen and I can answer.
Thank you. If you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. If you wish to cancel your requests, please press star 2. Or if you're on speakerphone, please pick up the handset to ask your question. Your first question comes from Andrew Weekly from Smith Weekly Research. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, operator. Well, first, congratulations to both of you, and of course, both sides for finally seeing this deal get on the same page. Thank you, John. Thank you, Stephen, for working together on this. I do think this is a great stroke and have no doubt that this combined company does very well in the time ahead. My first question, John, can you speak to how Tumas will slot in behind Mogul Rock in terms of timing? Do you see that Tumas is commissioned in 12 to 18 months after Mogul?
That's a good question. You'll notice that in both of our announcements, they're independent even, is that Vimy is going through an expansion of its project through the base metals, and they'll be doing some work, and that will require some time. So the revised DFS may take later this year or early next year, and Stephen can comment about that. The Tumas will come in at about the same time, and all that both projects will be then requiring is the feed or the engineering sort of design and and financing, and of course the contracting to support financing. So we think that both projects will be sort of aligned, and it'll be what is best for the shareholders, which provides the best value, and which scenario. But if there is a difference, it'll be about 6 months. And that doesn't mean one is suspended to the other. We did that, when I was in Paladin, Langer Heinrich and Kayelekera was sequenced in. So I think it's not the ability or which comes first. There's no ego in that. It's best value, best timing, and how each project faces up to those criteria. Over.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. That's good, and good to hear that and seeing that this slots in pretty well. On the second question, John, do you see that Deep Yellow remains strong and engaged on the M&A table over the next 12 months?
Well, look, we have to put that in balance, and we've got a big task with our current projects that we now have assimilated. But I think in terms of the door that it opens up for the merged group, that those opportunities will come in, and the board will consider them very seriously, how accretive they are to our company and for the shareholders. I personally think that the group needs to grow in terms of where the sector is and where it needs to be, but it'll be done with great care and purpose. Over.
Thank you. Well, Stephen, good to see you joining up with the board after this potentially gets closed. Appreciate that. And guys, John, thank you again for the time. Thank you for the efforts.
Great. Thanks very much, Andrew.
Thank you. Once again, if you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. Your next question comes from Simone Grogan from Business News. Please go ahead.
Hi guys, congrats on reaching a deal. Obviously we know that WA is a bit of a tricky jurisdiction for uranium mining. I just wondered if you could talk to what the next steps would be in actually advancing Mogul Rock, and what further state government approvals you'd need to get production and export underway.
Thanks very much, Simone. As you're probably aware, at the end of last year, Vimy received confirmation that it had reached substantial commencement of the Mogul Rock project. We were the only project in Western Australia, the only uranium project to reach substantial commencement within the 5-year timeframe. So from a permitting point of view, or from an government approvals point of view, we continue to have the ministerial consent in full force and effect. We have received several approvals for the mining at Mulga Rock, and we have started to submit applications for development of some of the above-ground infrastructure, starting with a proposal to put in the associated infrastructure for the camp, which will be the first part of the project to be built. We're continuing on with the feasibility studies and continuing to optimise the project. As John said, the inclusion of the base metal plant is a key pillar in optimising the project and the economics of it. So we will continue to work on optimisation and also approvals for above-ground infrastructure over the next 6 to 12 months. But from the position we sit today, we now are firmly of the view that the discussions that we've had with the various government departments are very positive, and with the positive sentiment in the uranium market and the price where it is, that we don't see any headwinds on developing this project as previously outlined to the market.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you. Your next question comes from Stuart McKinnon from the West Australian. Please go ahead.
Oh, g'day guys, and congratulations on the deal. John, you touched on some of the trends that are certainly providing a tailwind for uranium at the moment. You touched on the emissions narrative. We've also seen some, physical buying by this Sprott entity in Canada. You also touched on the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Can you just talk through how you see that as a tailwind for uranium?
Yes, thank you. Look, Russia is an important player in the whole uranium nuclear scene. It produces about 40% of global enrichment. It has a tremendous nuclear industry there, and produces uranium in its own right. But this Russia-Ukraine situation is and will profoundly affect for generations how this country participate and can participate in the nuclear, particularly in the fuel cycle. And the US gets about 20% of the enriched material, and you have to look at uranium or that whole fuel cycle from the point of view of yellow cake, which the producers Dominion, the intermediate stage of conversion, which is the US6, which is a gas sort of product, and then the enrichment, which is the final stage before fuel rod fabrication happens. So it is in high disturbance, and we haven't yet seen where things are going to end up. But you'll get an idea in terms of the gas supply to Europe and what sort of consternation that is having, and how it will not ever come back. There will be never a trust. People will now have security of supply issues, and this then, on top of the positive tailwinds of the industry prior to Russia, now adds another absolute ingredient for diversity of supply, security of supply. And because we're going to have limited enrichment capacity, the remaining enrichers will not be able to, as I say, squeeze the orange to its final drop, which is what the enrichers do in terms of producing the SWU. They will now, to increase production, have to put in more uranium equivalent and not worry about taking the tail to a low level, but a high level, and in that way, paradoxically, they'll produce more product. So they can increase their output, but they need a lot more uranium to do so, and because the capacity is fixed. So that's why we see this is an added advantage, and that's why any supply-demand outlook you saw that was before the end of this last year is completely out of date in terms of the long-term outlook for nuclear. as you can see, Japan is now thinking of reintroducing its faster track the fleet that it's got idle since Fukushima, and many other countries are declaring more nuclear, even since the Ukraine-Russian event happened.
Thanks for that, John. And just finally from me, if I can, it looks like the environmental groups and traditional owners are gearing up for a big fight over Mulga Rock. Are you prepared for that, that level of focus on the company, and, they're going to really ramp up their fight? I mean, are you prepared for that? How do you propose to deal with that, that sort of opposition?
I've been in the uranium game for more years than I can mention, and this is part of the whole fabric of, if you can't deal with these issues, you shouldn't be in the business. You've got to respect people's opinion, but we have legitimacy. The world has need, and ranting doesn't help. And we've dealt with the same issue in Africa. We've dealt with it when I operated in Australia. So we don't see that as any sort of it's in our sort of mojo, if you like. You're in uranium. That's where we're at. And I'd like to Stephen to say a few comments.
Thanks, John. Stuart, the merger, all of the Vimy employees will transition across into the merged group. So all of the work that's been done so far in terms of engagement with Indigenous landowners, engagement with the environmental groups will continue seamlessly through. And we've been engaging, Vimy, we've been engaging with the traditional owners around the Mulga Rock region for nearly a decade now, right back to sort of when the project was first applied for its mining licences in 2014, 2015. And we've completed considerable amount of work, ethnographic, archaeological studies with male and female Indigenous groups. Several of those studies have been done, and we continue to actively engage with the new claimants that have lodged claims over, including our area, over the last year, and we're actively engaging with those groups. So all of that will transition through to the merged group.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Once again, if you wish to ask a question, please press *1 on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. There are no questions in the queue at this stage. We will pause for a brief moment while we wait for a question to register. Your next question comes from Ian Diaz. Please go ahead.
Hello. This is a question to Stephen. Stephen, in this morning's release, you indicate that Paradise Investment Management supports this transaction. Are there any other substantial holders that support this transaction on these terms?
Three of them are running.
Thanks very much, Ian. Ian, Paradise is the largest shareholder of both Vimy and DPLO, and that's why we specifically reached out to Paradise and received their voting intention. We did not go to any other shareholders prior to the deal being announced, given the sensitivities over the transaction, and we felt that we needed to speak to the largest shareholder of both companies. We have not engaged with the other shareholders yet, but the process over the next few months will be to engage with all of Vimy's shareholders and talk to them about the transaction and answer any questions they have. And I might just hand over to John to speak to that as well.
Yes, and just to say this morning, some of those institutions have contacted to say they are highly supportive, although they haven't registered formally. And I guess that'll show out with Stephen's research in the next week or so.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further questions in the queue at this time. I'd now hand back to Mr. Borshoff for closing remarks.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. And in conclusion, we think this is a great deal for all shareholders. We look forward to speaking with shareholders over the coming weeks and urge you all to reach out if you have any queries as we work to execute this transaction. We will, at the appropriate occasions over the next months, be making presentations like this to inform where needed, and essentially watch this space. Thank you very much.